All right, right on. We are back. We are going to talk about more. We're going to talk more about path editing today, and we're going to create this nifty little animation using this. What we're specifically looking at is paths that have more than one path in them, i.e., they're going to have two path handles. We call them subpaths, so paths that have two paths in them or more. But we're just looking at two, and we're going to create this nifty little animation. Okay, so we're going to use a subpath inside of another path, and we're going to animate that path, the subpath, etc. Okay, so the way that we're going to construct this, I'm actually just going to show you in Sketch, but this applies to, for anybody that's actually just starting from an SVG, this is going to apply to you as well, because it is possible to have one layer in an SVG masking another layer. So we're going to create the shape in Sketch. We're going to export it to SVG just to show you that you can start with SVG as well. And then we're going to make this animation. Okay. So let's just open Sketch. And there's some old stuff we don't need to look at. Let's make that bigger. I'm going to make an artboard like we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We've been making them 400 by 400. And in this artboard, I'm going to make a circle. Okay. And I am going to change its color to this lovely little flow red. And I'm going to change its border color. I'm going to change its border color also to the same color like this. And I'm going to make the border color, or the border width, 10. Then I'm going to take another, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, so we have two ovals. One of them now I'm going to make, the outer one 320 by 320. And I'm going to recenter that, just like this. And then the inner one, so I'll call this one outer, and this one inner. And this one I will make, let's make this one 100 by 100. And also just drag it into the middle. Hard to see because everything is pink, but it's there, I swear. There we go, right in the middle. I'm going to take both of those, and I am going to, I'm going to subtract one from the other. Let's actually make this combined shape, the inner one. Let's make it 120, 1, 2, and we're going to have to say 1. And we're going to bring that back by 1 as well. Okay, so, and now, okay, so we have the borders are pink, the width is 10. Let's make the artboard background color. Let's just start with this, okay? Let's just start with this because this is going to be the simplest way. And we're going to call this a donut. All right, so what we've done in Sketch is we have created a shape. We've done a subtraction of that shape. So you will actually, this will be a cutout, even though it's white. So if I went and I changed this to the background color to another color, say flow green, you're going to see right through that thing. Okay, so it's not like it's a white circle on top of something else, because you could do this aesthetic with a white circle on top, but you wouldn't get the cutout. Okay, and we're going to do the rest of the setup of everything in Flow, because we're just going to look first at this shape in particular. So let's make this exportable. We're going to export an SVG to the desktop, and we're going to just call it donut.svg. All right, so now we can hop on over to Flow, just like that. Get rid of that project. In Flow, we're going to do a new timeline. Actually, we can save this, and we're going to call it FC27 subpaths. And we are going to create a timeline from our SVG, just like that. So we're going to open that. And it comes with this view box. And it actually comes with a rectangle in behind it too. That's just the way that Flow is exporting things, but we don't actually need that rectangle. So we have our donut. And if you notice right up here, there's only one shape. See it? There's only one shape. So when you do a union or something like that in another design tool, you export that to an SVG. The SVG is going to have that context in there. What Flow does, which is really nice, is it takes that combined shape and it turns it into one path. There's a lot of reasons why we do it that way. The easiest is because it makes it easier for exporting, but also it gives you some really nice, interesting control over your shapes as well. And we're going to dive into that right now. Okay, so we're back inside of Flow. And now to see what I mean by all that is I'm going to double click in. Okay, now look, we have, yesterday we had a shape with, with one subpath handle. We had 2 points, we had a line, and today we have 2 shapes, okay? And the way this came in was, it's a little bit more complicated than I thought it would be, right? But we actually have a shape here that has a bunch of different points in it, okay? And we have also 2 path handles. You see there's one here and one here. Okay. Now, I'm going to double click out and I want to show you, because this is a single shape, okay? It's one shape. It's one shape with 2 subpaths in it. So it's going to share the stroke across the entire shape. So let's look at this first. Let's turn on relative mode. We don't want to animate this stuff. And we're going to change that stroke color to this bright purple. Let's make it dark purple. I think that that's more contrast for everybody. Now you see when I changed it, the path, the stroke of both paths changed at the same time. It's because they are one single path. There's one layer up here, multiple subpaths, okay? So now let's look. Yesterday, and even before, we looked at animating endpoints. So let's just start moving that endpoint downwards, okay? Down, 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 down. So we'll get to the end of this circle and we're just going to keep pressing down. And then as we get closer and closer to 0, look, both of them animate out. Let's just go back there. We're going to turn off relative mode. We're going to animate back to the original position. Let's have a look at what that looks like. Animate, 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 animate. Okay. And with this in particular, let's slow that down one more time. This is half speed. Animates in on the outer circle, animates in on the smaller circle. And let's double click. Why does it animate in that particular direction? Well, it starts doing this, okay? It's going clockwise because that's the direction of this arrow right here. You see that? It's animating clockwise. And then what happens when it gets to that point right there, it jumps immediately to the next point and then continues animating, okay? So you might think something like, oh, well, wouldn't this be, since there's 2 circles, wouldn't this be like the halfway point? If you were keen and you had a keen eye, you notice that right about here is where the animation starts. And that's not halfway through the animation. Halfway through the animation is actually right there, this point right here, you see? Not halfway around one of the circles, okay? Not 3/4, nothing sort of even. And the reason for that, all right, is because, as we mentioned in the previous episode, one thing that you're actually doing is you're actually, not one thing that you're actually doing, when you're calculating or when you're drawing a path, that stroke start and stroke end, they are based on the entire length of the path, right? So we're talking about the circumference of this outer circle plus the circumference of the inner circle. Okay, so halfway is actually this point right here. So from here onwards for the rest of the circle, plus this circumference, that's equal to everything that's being drawn at the moment, because we are drawing at a half a second or halfway through our animation, i.e. the endpoint here is 0.5. Okay, so what happens? We can reverse that path on the inside. Okay, and now what we're going to get, oh, that did make a change. Should have had, let's just undo. We don't want the path animation. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to turn on relative mode. And what I'm going to do here, double click in, I'm going to select this path, the inner one, and I'm going to reverse its direction. So now it's drawing clockwise as well. And we're going to animate and then animate, just like that, you see? So you can manipulate the drawing direction of your paths by selecting them, reversing, selecting them, reversing, just like that. Now, another really brilliant thing that you can do with the path handle is you can change its position. What does that mean? Well, what it means is you can take that handle and you can change the start point of your animation. So that's where the drawing starts from. So now it's going to start here and it's going to draw anti-clockwise. So let's look back here, starting from the top. Okay. Starting from the top, animating in, just like that. There's a little artifact in here. Sometimes you actually might see it. I'm just going to copy this value and I'm going to delete one of these points. And now I'm just going to make this one even. There's something funky happening here, and I'm just going to do that. I'm just sort of repairing some damage that happened to the shape. We can get into that in a little bit. But there you go. So animates from the top counterclockwise all the way in, then it animates from the bottom counterclockwise all the way in, because I changed the path point handle. And the way that I did that is I selected it and I started dragging. Oh, and here's a hint of what we're talking about next. And then I pressed Option, and that allows me to move that path handle around the shape. Okay, so you can choose, all right, you can choose where that path is going to start animating, or that subpath. You can also choose the direction that it's going to animate. Now, there we go. Sorry, one of my computers just died. And I am just bringing it back online so that I can show you my lovely face. Okay, so we have a single path with two paths in it. All right, and then the subpath and the normal path, we treat them just like normal paths, right? Like the big one and the small one, they're just like a single path. You can move the path point handle to any point along it, and you can change its drawing direction. You can also manipulate the points if you wanted to. So for instance, if I was in here and say I, did something like this, let's do something like that. And let's say we move this on out, and then this one out, and this one out, and this one out, something like that. What you can see is we're going to get that nice little animation. Okay, so you can manipulate the points of the subpaths just like you can a normal path. And again, like we talked about yesterday, you are actually going to get extra XY with height if you're affecting the outer frame of the shape. There we go. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. I'm just going to undo all these changes that I made to the paths themselves like that. And it's time to start animating the thing that we had shown in the preview. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this animation of the circle, the inner circle, by moving the path, using the path handle to move that path. And then we're going to apply rotation to the general shape. And then we'll just put a nice dark background color so that we can see things behind it. And we're going to add a line so that we can see the contrast, just to highlight that this is actually a shape that has a cutout in it, okay? And this is a cutout without a mask, okay? So let's set this up. I'm going to select the background color. Let's turn relative mode on because we're just prepping our design. I'm going to make that nice and dark. And now I am going to add a line. So we're just going to take this line like this. We're going to double click. We're going to move that path point up and to the right. Press Command to snap to the corners. We're going to make that stroke width 20. Wow, let's make it 40. Let's make it nice and thick so we can see it. Let's change that stroke color to a bright green. And then we're going to drop that line. Oh, I don't like that _2, so we're just going to change the name and drop it down, just like that. I kind of like the sort of the blue line there as well, so let's just leave that in. And now let's go and make our, or not, maybe not. Let's just have a look. Yeah, let's just do it like this. Let's do it like that. Okay. Now let's take our donut and we're going to actually animate this thing. Let's also get rid of this stroke end animation before we get started. Okay, so now we literally have no animations on here. Our animation is set up. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to double click in and we're going to take that path handle and we're going to just shift and command and snap it to the outer edge of the bigger shape. Okay, then we're going to turn off relative mode and we're going to move it across with our timeline at the end to the other side of the shape. So here you go. Okay, we animated it from there to there, and now let's hit play, and we are on half speed, so it's going to be a bit slower than the normal speed. And already there, you're starting to see, right, that you can animate subpaths within paths. So our next step is to go out here, and we are going to say, for our entire shape, I'm going to press escape to get out of path editing mode. And I'm going to give it 2 rotations, which is 760 or 720. And I want that rotation to be linear so that it's constant. And now I'm going to hit play. And okay, so one thing I did forget, let's just go back here, is that when you import from an SVG, the shape is always anchored to the top left. So if we turn on relative mode, and we're going to change that anchor point to the middle. So we want that entire pink shape to be rotating by the middle, and that's going to give us this nice sort of effect of the circle doing some weird little dance inside of the other circle. And we hit play. There we go. And are we close? The last step is I want the final position of this shape to be in the original position. So we'll take our, so if you remember, we had animated, let's just delete the last animation. We had animated from the left to the right. Okay. So now let's go to left to right and then back again. And we'll drag this back to 0.5. And then we're going to option drag the first key value over to here. And now we have, there you go, this nice consistent kind of odd animation happening, but with the cutout beneath it. There you go. So today was a little bit longer. And the main reason for that is because we are exploring a couple of different ideas. I mean, you got to have this kind of animation, you have to have a shape that has a cutout in it. And how do you create that? So we created one in Sketch. And then we also showed that if you actually have the exact same kind of shape in an SVG, you can bring that in. So we could either synced from our Sketch file or brought it in from the SVG file itself. But now we have a shape that has a cutout inside of it because there's a subtraction happening between the two shapes. And then what we did is we looked at what it means to have two shapes or two subpaths in the same shape. So it's just like having two shapes, except they have this subtraction thing happening to them. And you can manipulate them the exact same way you would a normal shape. Okay, and then what we did is we looked at what the path handle does. It lets you define the beginning of a shape and the orientation of how it's going to draw. And then after that, all we did was we used that path handle to manipulate or to change the position of a shape. And then we animated the rotation of the entire thing to get an odd effect. Well, not odd, but just like a more complex effect than it would be possible doing this on your own. Okay? Especially with a mask. That would be even harder, I would say. All right, so that's it for another week. See you on Monday.